Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. One of the biggest questions, not only for Notre Dame fans heading into spring practice, but I would argue one of the bigger question marks that we see in all of college football heading into 2025 is who's going to be quarterback one for this Notre Dame offense going into the 2025 year, and why I think it's just such an important question in the college football landscape, if you will, is look, if this Notre Dame team gets good quarterback play in the 2025 season, you were looking at a national championship caliber football team. That offensive line, with all that development we're going to see in 2025, I think going to be a force. We obviously know what the run game is going to look like with what might be the most talented running back room that we see in the country. I think the biggest storyline for a lot of Notre Dame fans going into 2025 is the wide receiver play. This to me is the best wide receiver room that I've seen Notre Dame have in a very, very long time. Not only in terms of the additions of guys like Will Pauling and Malachi Fields, who I both think are legitimate difference makers for Notre Dame, but you're talking about the development of a guy like Jaden Greathouse going into year three. I would think the wide receiver one in this Notre Dame offense, Cam Williams, Micah Gilbert going into year two. We haven't seen a Notre Dame pass catcher room with this much talent in a very long time. So you look at and of course the defense is going to be good. We don't got to talk about that. You look at this Notre Dame offense and say they got all the boxes checked going into 2025. You're looking for who's the quarterback that can give you the best play in 2025. You got three names. And where I want to start here is you got three names that all can be potential answers. Many of y'all know I'm a Michigan fan. Michigan had five names that could be potential answers going into the 2024 year, yet turned out there wasn't a single answer at the quarterback spot for Michigan going into 2024. You look at these three names, Steve Angeli, CJ Carr, Kenny Minchey, they're all potential answers. You know, a guy like Steve Angeli, we've seen play good football for Notre Dame. CJ Carr, a guy that I love coming out of high school in that 2024 class. And the dark horse for me, a guy that I don't think not enough people are talking about, is Kenny Minchey. I think Kenny Minchey might be the best pure fit in terms of what Mike Denbrock wants to do with this Notre Dame offense going into 2025. The combination of what he can do as a passer, which you go back to the spring game last year. I mean, there were some high-level throws from Kenny Minchey, but also what he brings as an athlete. We all know Mike Denbrock wants to involve the quarterbacks in the run game. Kenny Minchey can bring that to you for Notre Dame. We're going to talk about Kenny Minchey. I want to get into all three of these names and kind of call our shot, if you will, in terms of what quarterbacks do we think are going to emerge for Notre Dame. I think they're in a really good spot because these three names. And the other thing I would note here is, look, Marcus Freeman has shown that he's not afraid to go into the transfer portal and grab a quarterback if he thinks they need one. Marcus Freeman's absence of pursuing a quarterback in the portal, just from an outside, I ain't got no inside information, just from an outsider looking into that program, Marcus Freeman not even kicking around any quarterbacks. That tells me that he believes in at least one of these guys going into 2025, which I think should make a lot of Notre Dame fans feel good about it too. Want to get into these three names, all three guys that I remember coming out of high school that we've talked a lot about in the past. Excited to get into it before we do, and as always, to the Notre Dame fans, it's going to be fun the next couple of weeks and months talking about this program, specifically this quarterback battle. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, and more importantly, let it fly in the comment section. You know, I'm probably going to have some hot takes over the next 10 minutes. Some of y'all might disagree with it. That's kind of the beauty of talking about quarterback battles on February 18th. Let's start with Steve Angeli. I think regardless of who's playing quarterback, you're going to see a little bit of a different offense going into 2025. Obviously, the run game was a big factor and still will be a big factor, but also Riley Leonard and his skill set. I give Mike Denbrock, to me, one of the best OCs in the game, did a really good job tailoring this offense to Riley Leonard. You know, Riley Leonard emerged as one of the better quarterbacks in college football, and he ain't going to be a top 10 NFL draft pick, not going to be a first-round NFL draft pick, but he has certain skills that Mike Denbrock did a very good job utilizing in the 2024 year, specifically what he can do with his legs and the quick game. I would predict that not only with a quarterback that whoever wins this job, I think will provide more juice down the field as a thrower of the football with the combination of these wide receivers, I think in 2025 being significantly better, you're going to see a little bit more of a downfield passing attack than we saw with Notre Dame in 2024. Kind of reminds you of what it looked like for LSU in 2023, where you look at the difference. Riley Leonard averaged up to target only 7.5 yards down the field. Only 10% of his throws went 20-plus yards. It was a pretty short, intermediate, quick game passing attack for Notre Dame. Whoever wins this job in 2025, combined with the talent at wide receivers, you're going to see a bigger presence down the field throwing the football, which I think is only going to help the run game for Notre Dame in the 2025 year as well. Give you a little bit more space to operate. Let's get into these three names. Steve Angeli is probably I think a lot of people would say the leader in the clubhouse, right? Was quarterback 2 for Notre Dame. When Riley Leonard went down, Steve Angeli was the guy coming in. I like Steve Angeli. I think a lot of Notre Dame fans would have a lot of confidence if Steve Angeli took the field in 2025. There are some things that you probably want to clean up. And here's probably my take on Steve Angeli. Probably gives you the highest floor in terms of you kind of know what you're going to get from Steve Angeli. Probably not the highest ceiling either. And you go in and say, all right, he probably needs to do a better job getting himself out of trouble. One of the things Riley Leonard did exceptionally well, not only at his time at Notre Dame, but going back to Duke, is, hey, I can avoid sacks. I can get myself out of trouble, throw off platform. You saw a couple of different times Steve Angeli, one, not really having a good internal clock, the lack of ability to get himself out of trouble and be a real difference maker at the quarterback position. That's probably the knock on him. But you saw him come in. He's accurate with the football. There are things to like. I think he's the safest bet, if you will, going into spring practice. The next name you want to talk about is CJ Carr. And these are the two names that are getting the most around a buzz, right? Steve Angeli, the guy that we've seen the most of. CJ Carr, the guy that the Notre Dame fans are excited the most for. Like, CJ Carr is a box checker. And I don't say polished quarterback just because of his grandfather and his dad, and obviously coming from a football family. You go back to his high school stuff. I mean, I'm a Michigan fan. Michigan was going hard after CJ Carr. Watched a lot of CJ Carr of him coming out of high school. He's an elite pocket manager. He even going back to his high school days, dealing with muddy pockets, stepping up, going through his progressions. Obviously was a top 50 national prospect, so that he can make all the throws on the football field. Box checker with CJ Carr. In my opinion, him and Kenny Minchey probably offer the most upside for this Notre Dame offense. I thought it was impressive, too, in the spring game as an early enrollee freshman. Like, the ball was coming out quick, on time, accurately, for the most part, keeping the ball out of harm's way. The third quarterback you got to talk about, and I don't think enough people are talking about Kenny Minchey. Because Steve Angeli played so much, because CJ Carr is kind of like the golden arm of that Notre Dame class in 2024, Kenny Minchey kind of just gets forgotten about, it seems like, from a lot of Notre Dame fans. I think he might be the best option. Go back to the spring game in the 2024 year. Got a lot of work. He went live, right? No red non-contact jersey. He probably, to me on the outside, is probably the best fit. Mike Denbrock wants to use his quarterbacks in athletic manners, whether that's running the football with them, whether that's getting outside the pocket and throwing off platform. Kenny Minchey probably provides you that best ability. This kid's arm talent is slept on in a big way. I mean, there were some legit high-level throws that Kenny Minchey made back on his high school film, but also in that spring game. To me, Kenny Minchey's right up there with that three-man race within this Notre Dame offense. Go back to his high school ranks, 32 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. He takes care of the football at a pretty high level. You saw him put the football in harm's way a little bit in the spring game. Young quarterback, maybe trying to do too much at times. Not enough people are talking about Kenny Minchey. I think what excites me the most is, look, Marcus Freeman and Mike Denbrock are going to put whatever quarterback they deem gives them the best chance to win in the 2025 year. But there's kind of different styles of that. You look at Steve Angeli, probably the most consistent, probably the least amount of upside. And then you look at Kenny Minchey and CJ Carr and say the upside that they can bring to this Notre Dame offense, I think is really, really big. What does Marcus Freeman decide to do? We're going to kind of see. And I do think it's kind of important. Look, I don't think there will be a quarterback that's named the starter coming out of spring, because you kind of want to keep these guys around going into fall camp. And I would guess that you're going to take some time to kind of figure it out. It's a legit three-man race, in my opinion. We'll see where Marcus Freeman decides to go. If I do see CJ Carr or Kenny Minchey trot out there and beat a guy out like Steve Angeli, I think if you're a Notre Dame fan, you're fired up, because that means not only did they show they can be more consistent than Steve Angeli, but we know from a quarterback prospect side of things, I think the upside with those two cats are really, really big. Keep an eye on Kenny Minchey, guy that I love coming out of high school. I think he has some really, really big time upside and fits this Notre Dame offense well. We'll pause it there. And I would like to make one more thing clear. This is not an anti-Steve Angeli take. I thought you saw a lot of good things from, and he very well might be the quarterback, and you can win a lot of football games with Steve Angeli. There ain't no question mark about that. In terms of upside, though, I probably do lean CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey in terms of the upside they can bring to this Notre Dame offense. Might be a hot take, might not be. Let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Going to be really fun to talk about the next couple of weeks, and we'll talk to y'all later.